Good evening, everyone. Good evening. I hope everybody's having a wonderful evening here. It's always fun for me. Although I noticed that I can never get the damn camera straight where it's actually facing me like it's supposed to. Haha. Professional stream, guys. Professional stream. We do have a special guest tonight. He's hiding back here, but this is the reason why we're a little bit later getting on stream. He's very black and blends in with the background perfectly, but he's here to help me out explaining stuff to you guys. You know, he doesn't do anything. He's so chill. He's like the most super chill bunny on the face of the planet. I swear, it's hilarious. Hi, bud. Yes, you're a good boy. But yeah, so that's the fun special guest that we have tonight, and yeah, yes, Bunny. That's the his name is Mr. Mandrake, by the way. He's an awesome bunny. In any case, tonight we actually do have a topic that is kind of hiding in there. Let's get rid of that nonsense there, and also that nonsense. In any case, tonight we're actually going to try to kind of focus on being a little bit more on the educational front tonight, which to me is kind of really one of the things that I really do want to focus on in most of the streams on here is kind of keeping things on an educational front. So tonight, as many of my topics delve into the realm of consumer advocacy and the like, I tend to want to explain a lot based upon the assumption that everybody understands how a consumer is supposed to act. So we're going to kind of talk tonight about the standard expectations of camera work and getting the right camera angles. No, we're going to talk about kind of how to be a consumer, how to research, how to buy stuff, you know, what you should be doing ideally as a consumer in order to make sure that you're not ripped off and so on. So here's the thing. The first step that people should understand when they're buying something is that as a consumer, it is your responsibility to research and know the product that you're buying before you buy it. The truth is that most people nowadays, or not most people, a growing number of people nowadays do not research stuff a lot like they're supposed to be. They tend to just kind of buy what they're told to buy for the sake of buying what they're told to buy. You know, they don't ever ask questions. They don't ever really think about it more than just, hey, this is the thing. I'm supposed to buy this because of some arbitrary determination by someone else. And that's it. They don't really make any further consideration of it before that. To the point where you know it's bad when the US government feels the need to actually put this is put together by the US government, put together here's things you should do on before you buy anything. Like, you know, and knowing your consumer rights and so on. This, to be fair, was put together before a lot of the more recent gutting of consumer rights and consumer protections that was done in later times, but this still stands, and it's still a very it's a very solid framework to start things off. So what does this site say? And this is from usa.gov/before- Stuff is crashing. I thought the bunny crashed. I was gonna be like, oh no, there's a crashing bunny. I am curious as to what I knocked over though. Loud noises. Anyway, so here's the thing. Oh, and thank you for the host, Goken. I noticed that you hosted me over there. Thank you very much, sir. So here's the thing. This is the first step in knowing anything, is that knowing you need to research what you do before you buy it, right? Not just buying stuff blindly. you should always research stuff. This is why the first step on this website is do your research. Set a budget, decide how much you're willing to pay. I think that's pretty obvious for most people, is that, hey, yeah, I only have $60 to pay for a video game, so I can't afford more than that. I think in most cases, a lot, especially when we're framing this in the sense of video games, there's really, it's pretty standard how much people are paying for stuff. You're not going to see a whole lot more than that. There you go. You can be on the camera a little bit more there, bud. So in that particular instance, whenever you are, whenever you're deciding how much you want to pay for something, you have to understand your concept of value. And this is not something that there's any like actual physical definition for. This is something that you actually have to kind of figure out for yourself, right? This is something where you have to kind of make a determination. What is worth $60 to me from a video game perspective? What is worth, $40? What is worth $20? Really, what do I feel is worth my money, right? That's something that's different for everybody. That's something that you have to figure out yourself. Unfortunately, nobody's going to tell you like any arbitrary determination of what is worth what amount of money is really ultimately going to be your personal preference. And that's where it leads into the next one. Decide in advance what features and qualifications you need. Some products and services can come with a wide range of feature levels or of service. And this, like tying it back to video games on there, do you like shooter games? Do you like RPGs? Do you like racing games? I mean, if you really are into racing games, maybe RPGs aren't going to be really for you. This is stuff that you have to yourself kind of figure out. You have to understand yourself before you really get into making any sort of purchase. Come here, bud. I know you're very unsure of this whole situation, and you're just like, can you just like give me more pets because I'm very nervous. So in any case, though, a lot of it is kind of understanding your service or understanding yourself and knowing what you want to get out of a product. But then the second piece on there is asking, people around you, trusted family and friends that have bought a similar type of product recently, and ask for advice on their experience. For example, and this, this can extend off to your social network, I should say, your social circle, even online, not just friends and family, because obviously this is a government website and probably they didn't understand that they were making this for a website. They probably thought that they were writing this down on paper, that they were going to use a typewriter to type it up, because the government and modern technology aren't the best of friends. But in any case, so here's the thing, is that you usually have a circle of people that you kind of go to for advice. People that you can trust in most cases. It may not even be people that you specifically know. It could be people that, you just relate to. It could be like, say, Total Biscuit, right? He makes reviews for games, and you kind of trust, you know his opinions well enough, and you kind of trust where he's coming from on judgments that he makes, and therefore you like what he has to say, and you trust him, and therefore you want to see his advice based upon something. Could be the same thing, Now, the reason why I bring this up is because there's a difference between testing reviews and anecdotal reviews, right? And anecdotal reviews are typically what you hear from family, friends, and loved ones, and the like. It's usually stuff that's like, hey, I trust this person, and they say that they had a good experience with it. He's so chill. He's so chill. He's just like, I'm not moving anywhere. Wherever you put me, that's where I am. This is the reason why I brought him on the stream, is because he doesn't get too feisty. He literally is just like, I'm just gonna super relax no matter where you put me. Mr. Mandrake, everyone. Mr. Mandrake. But so in any case, though, so in that regard on there, your family and friends, that's kind of getting the anecdotal evidence for a product. You're kind of getting a feel. You're getting qualitative data, right? It's not really anything specific. It's just general feel of it, right? But then you want to kind of gather the service that you're, like the information that you're purchasing from the seller. You also want to see if there's any complaints out there, especially if there's actually any official lodged complaints from the seller for products that they're selling. Like, for example, say that you have a problem with gambling, which that's not necessarily illegal in some places, it just depends. Say you have a problem with gambling and you read Battlefront 2 has gambling and you're like, you know, I really don't want to be a part of that. I don't want anything of that. Well, you would want to research that and find out that's in games like Battlefront 2, and if you don't want to be a part of it, then you should know that's in Battlefront 2. Then you review product test results from consumer experts and comment from past customers. Now, when I was talking before about the kind of the qualitative reviews or the anecdotal reviews, that was like from your friends or from other informal sources, right? Test results, though, is quantitative data. That's hard numbers. It's not people's feelings on it. It's actual facts. This would be, for example, in the game senses. Does the game run at a consistent frame rate? What resolutions does it run at? If you're considering buying it on PS4 versus PC versus Xbox, which version has the best overall data and resolution? You're getting a little scared, buddy, that I'm poking your chin. Get that little chin itchy on there. It makes his ears go up, and then he's ticklish right here. He's like, stop doing that. But no, in any case though, these are hard data that you can actually reproduce, that's testable, that you know for a fact where it's at, right? It's not stuff that is subject to perspective. Okay, we'll set you down here, buddy. Whoops. There we go. It's like I set him down there and he just stays put, doesn't move. In any case, though, after you get those official test results, right, and you see comments based upon and here's another thing about test results. Good test results will have people that are reviewing it and commenting on the testing process. This is something else you do want to consider was the testing process handled in a fair manner? Because sometimes you can conduct tests in a way that skews the results to benefit a party, right? And that's something else on there too that we'll get into, is the skewing of results and how to kind of determine that if necessary. Find out if the product has been recalled. Yeah, that happens for a lot of products. You're not going to see really any recalls for official like video games, except if you're in Australia. But yeah, so make the purchase. I think we know how to purchase stuff. At least most of you know how to purchase. One of the things on there, don't buy on impulse or under pressure. This includes donating to charity. For example, we're going to turn down that music volume a little bit so it's not overwhelming me, because this is important. Don't buy on impulse or under pressure. A form of buying pressure would be pre-order this game in order to get these pre-order bonuses. Don't fucking pre-order. I don't care if they offer to buy you a fucking mansion. It's a lie. Don't pre-order the game. That only benefits the publisher. It does not benefit the consumer ever. I don't care what they're promising. It doesn't. They're just trying to entice you to do that because they know they benefits, right? So after you buy, know your rights to cancel. Unfortunately, with video games, your refund options are severely limited. However, there is stipulations in the US government that there is a 3-day cooling off period, and if a video game purchaser, this includes on console, fun fact on there, if you really want to refund something and there's no clear refund purchase or refund process on consoles as of right now, you can contact the government through there's this link from the FTC It's protections on home purchase, cooling off rule, etc. Oh, no, that's not for home purchases, but where is the actual... Oh, in any case, though, there is generally across many platforms an ability to go through the government in order to force a publisher to issue a refund. And that's something important to note, is that you have a right to a refund. Doesn't matter if they offer it clearly through the console, you have a right to a refund. Doesn't matter what it is. Every other store has a clear refund process. You buy a video game from a store, you can take it back to that store. But if you buy it on Xbox or on PlayStation Store, digital stores, they don't make it clear that you can refund it. You actually probably would have to force them through the government. So that's something important to note, is that you do have a right, at least in the United States, to a refund, and many other countries. Save all papers with the purchase. Yes, and if you're actually buying it from a physical store, you want to save your receipts. Save emails that you might get as a confirmation of the purchase. This just acts as legal protection in case for some reason they deny that you purchased it from them. Trust me, there are some shady ass fucking video game dealers out there. G2A. Read and follow the product services instruction. I think we can skip most of that. And that's research a nonprofit. Well, no, actually, this is researching a business. So any reputable business or nonprofit must have all appropriate licenses. You can actually check their licensing to see if they're actually a licensed distributor of content. Their complaints history. Yes, the BBB does keep a list of all database reviews. This includes for EA, folks. Yes, and by the way, EA has one of the worst ratings on the Better Business Bureau. The FTC has filed, if the FTC has filed complaints against the company, that will only happen in really severe cases. You probably won't have to worry about that. Let's see. You can, if you really want, and now financial and tax records are more important if you're donating to a charity, but in the sense of video game stuff, that's really if you're looking to do a deep dive into the actual motivations of the company. In the sense that if you are looking to find out what a statement they are making, what the purpose of that statement is, you might look into their financial records. For example, EA wanting to move towards multiplayer-only games and wanting to increase the amount of open-world games they have. Their public statement will say that they want to do this to increase player choice. Right? That sounds great, doesn't it? They just want to give you more choice as a player. But in researching their finances, you realize that since instituting a lot of the loot box practices they have, and since launching a lot of open world titles and instituting multiplayer only games and so on, you realize that their costs for development have drastically gone down and their profits have drastically gone up. You can pretty well deduce that their choice to implement more games like that has zero to do with giving you more player choice and more to do with increasing their profit margins. By the way, that is not a hypothetical, that's actually the actual facts of EA's finances. Their actual expenditures on game development have gone down drastically, whereas their profits have gone drastically up. This goes into more recalls, which you don't really do. Now here's fun. They do have a section on online shopping. Use websites that are known or recommended, i.e. don't use G2A or Kingwin. They're not recommended by anybody. In fact, there's at least one publisher I knew of, an indie video game dev, that said they would rather you pirate their game than buy it on G2A. That says a lot. There's a lot of skeeziness that goes into G2A that I'm not going to discuss here specifically. I've discussed it on the Pixel Crashers podcast before with Kev and Travis and Zyphon and all of them. But in any case, yeah, G2A and Kingwin are not recommended sites because there's some really shady shit that goes on there. So those are not websites that you should use ever. Compare prices and deals, including free shipping and extended service contracts. In the case of if you're on PC, you benefit from the fact of having multiple digital marketplaces that you can shop from. So you might be able to find a better deal on a game. Most of the time nowadays, I've noticed that they pretty well have all their sales synchronized because the sales originate from the publisher of the game, including if it's an indie game, then the publisher is just the developer. Whatever the case on there, they generally have if they offer a sale on Steam, that same one will be on GOG and Humble and all the rest of them. So generally you'll find it in the same place, but it's always a good idea just to be safe to search multiple stores, and don't just always buy from one place just because it's the way you've always done it. That's generally a bad idea, because then that's how they get you. They want you to buy at the same place, and then they can jack up the prices and you won't argue, right? Search for online coupons. That's not a bad idea. You sometimes can find really cool promo codes for certain deals. And the thing is most people don't understand the concept of a lot of what coupons are for. Coupons are a lot of times a means of tracking analytics on advertising. So essentially what you'll see on there is, for example, you go to a website and it says, oh yeah, you'll get 10% off your first purchase from so-and-so, if you type in promo code this and this. And you'll notice the promo code will say something like stop 1 or free 5 or something like that. Those are all tied to certain analytics for advertising. It's a way for the publisher of the game to know what advertising is working. Unfortunately, sometimes those promo codes get out to like extra sources that are not necessarily where they're intended, but generally that's what coupons are for, is a way for them to track advertising and find out who's doing the right advertising and where to spend their money. So it helps you and it helps the publisher to use coupons. So it's a win-win. Get a complete description of the item and parts included. In the sense of the video game, find out what is all included in the video game, and if there are any tertiary expenses, such as, for example, season passes, deluxe editions, what all of those things offer. Do not buy anything based upon promises. We promise we'll give you DLC in the future. Here's a little secret while we're on this topic of season passes. Season passes are another form of pre-ordering, just with a different name. Instead of pre-ordering the game, you're pre-ordering DLC. Now, yes, it is true that season passes on the surface tend to offer you savings over the released DLC that ends up coming out, or at least in theory. The thing is that oftentimes those DLCs, once they are all released, will then be bundled and then packaged up for sale later on, usually in a kind of a special edition of the game. For example, you take for the good example is Dragon Age Inquisition. Didn't have a season pass for that game as far as I know, but had it had a season pass, say they would have charged $30 for the season pass, right? Or maybe $40 for the season pass. All depends, right? The DLC comes out, you get a $10 DLC, another $10 DLC, and then a $15 DLC. Man, you're actually, if you spent $20 on or $30 on that season pass, you're saving $5 on it. But then after that last DLC drops, right? What you're doing is they'll release like the Game of the Year edition for Dragon Age Inquisition that costs like $20 on sale. $20 for the game and all the DLC. And you spent $30 just for the season pass, plus $60 for the base game. The point of it is that oftentimes the prices are higher up front for early adopters. Season passes are just a way to help front load the funding they have for the DLC by saying, hey, look, here's how much we project we'll make based upon these initial numbers on pre-orders. That's all that they're for. They only, again, benefit the publisher, not the actual consumer. The real deals you get for DLC come after all the DLC has been released, in modern uses at least. Yes, verify the full item or the full price of the item, not just the advertised price. Surcharges aren't necessarily a problem with video games. However, again, if there are any special editions, you'll want to find out what the real price is. And also, if there are microtransactions in the game and what those microtransactions look like. A good example would be, hey, I see advertised on the cover of a game a character that's decked out in this really cool armor or what have you. I get into the game and I find out that that armor is only available from a microtransaction purchase, and it costs $10. Well, then the real cost for me, if I want that armor, would be the game plus that $10. And that's something that you really need to account for. Sadly, those straight microtransaction purchases aren't always so clear nowadays when you account for loot boxes, which loot boxes potentially increase the amount of money you have to pay to get what you want by a drastic amount. So definitely something that you want to be clear of. Read product reviews and seller reviews from past customers and independent experts. Yes, independent experts, as in not people paid by the publisher in order to review stuff, which happens a lot. Don't believe what the fucking press is telling you about the game, in the sense of, hey, you know, Kotaku posted an article saying the VP of finance from EA said such and such. That's not really an independent review of the game. That's an independent statement of something that the company said. So, as far as that goes. Now, the next part on there is that they oftentimes will recommend paying with a credit card. And the reason for that is because federal law protects you if you need to dispute the charges. And that's kind of one of the reasons for oftentimes just like paying with a credit card or a debit card for that matter. Actually, they all tend to follow the same laws. The other thing on there too, and this is just data security on there, use HTTPS instead of HTTP if you're using a website, and don't make purchases on public Wi-Fi hotspots. Save your purchase order with product information and confirmation number, and find out if your purchase qualifies for discounted or free shipping. That's general stuff on there. And I think that's pretty much all that was on here. But there is something else that you need to know. And you'll notice this is made up, or this has been commented on a few times. Reviews. And this is a very key in kind of understanding a lot of the information, because whenever you go to research something, you want to see a game or whatever, and you say you look up on YouTube, you see some reviews on the game, or on Twitch, you want to see people streaming it. It is hard to really decipher a lot of the information that gets thrown at you about a product that you want to buy, a video game that you want to buy. So a good review, which it should be an unbiased one, or at least a fair one, is not designed to promote a particular product to increase sales or awareness. It should be unbiased. If not, then it really won't be telling you the whole story. A good review should cover the main reasons why people are reading your review and what they're trying to find out. Is the product right for them? What are the advantages and disadvantages of the product? Is the product easy to use? What's the build quality like? Are there alternatives to consider? And how have other people found out using and owning the product? And is it a value for the money? The main thing on here, to translate this into video game speech, is whenever you're reading a review, the person should kind of give their recommendation on the product of, you know, is it good or not. But the other thing on there is they should then ask, here are my good points and bad points of using the product, right? So here's what I found good about the game, here's what I found bad about the game. Should always have pros and cons. Really, someone who's actually can say there's something good. I mean, there might be a few games that I played out there that I struggle to find pros to, or that I struggle to find cons to. Maybe it's just that good. Easy to use is very subjective, and that's not always necessarily applicable to video games, because sometimes easy to use is actually seen as a bad thing. For example, Dark Souls. Part of the appeal and allure of Dark Souls is the fact that it is not very friendly to new players that don't understand the game. and that's part of the allure of it. So is it easy to use? Well, even if the answer is no, that's still something to cover, but it's not something that's necessarily a detractor from the product. The build quality, however, is one of the biggest things of a game. Mass Effect Andromeda, the build quality was frankly rather shitty in a lot of areas. It had some good points, it had some bad points. The next one on here, and this is something that I don't see very often covered in video game reviews, is are there alternatives? Whenever someone tells me about Destiny, for example, and I'm like, that sounds nice, that's an interesting sounding game, and I would say, however, there's this alternative called Warframe, and it's free. You know, it's freemium. It's got microtransactions, but the game is free to play. You can hop into it. You can download it. It's on PS4, Xbox, PC, and it runs great. And it's actually a very solid game. And to be honest with you, I feel like it's a better alternative. Even Destiny 2. In fact, even more so than Destiny 2, Warframe is a superior alternative. And that's something that a lot of reviewers don't really cover very often, is the alternatives to the game they're purchasing, because it's very difficult for a lot of games to have alternatives because of how unique some of them are. How have other people found using and owning the product? And this is kind of a peer review. Like, I'm reviewing the game, and here's what other people have also said. I'm one of the few people to criticize it. Other people have said that they've enjoyed it otherwise. In the last one, value for the money. This was something I was talking about before. Whenever you're talking value is very difficult to gauge in a lot of things. It's all about what you, as the person using it, are going to find most useful of it. Do you, for example, you're playing Destiny, and whereas I personally find that the game is rather shallow and really doesn't have a whole lot to offer, like Destiny 2, for example, it just seems like it's kind of bland and doesn't really have a lot of depth to it. I find that Warframe has a lot more to offer me from my perspective, and offers a shit ton more value based on its free-to-play model with microtransactions than Destiny does with its pay-to-play model that also has microtransactions. So, you know, to me, I see the value proposition much better for Warframe. However, say that you just enjoy the gameplay mechanics of Destiny far more than Warframe, and that's where you put your most value. Well, then you're going to find more value in Destiny, even despite my value proposition difference between the two. So the next step on here, this should be obvious. The reviewer needs to have used the product. Good grief, have I seen some people that and when I say reviewer, they're talking generally a professional reviewer, but the thing is that reviewers come from all sorts. And the thing is that I see a lot of people that are recommending against the game, and they haven't ever actually played the game. It's like, yeah, I don't understand why people feel they're just echoing what other people have said, and that's not necessarily bad. If you're repeating what someone else has said as a review of the game, you should cite that person and say, hey, this person said this, instead of saying, well, I think this. Because you don't think that. That's not your thought. That's someone else's thought that you're regurgitating. And you should kind of recognize that and articulate that to other people. That's not how society works anymore. Everybody just regurgitates what other people said as if it's their own thought anymore, which is unfortunate, but that's a rant for another day. The thing is that there's are a number of different approaches that reviewers can get a hold of products that are for free, and there is a there is a pro and con to getting free product for review. If you give me a video game for free for me to review, there's one camp that sees that as unfairly biasing you in favor of the video game because you didn't have that gravity of needing to spend real money on the game. For example, someone comes up and hands me Destiny 2. Well, I didn't have to pay $60 up front, so in that regard, it may feel just like Warframe to me, because both felt free to play to me because I didn't pay for Destiny. Whereas the actual consumer out there is going to have to pay that $60 for Destiny up front. So that's kind of one camp on it. The other camp on there feels that if you are paying for the game, then it is going to unfairly bias you against the game, where you're going to judge it more harshly based upon its price point. I feel like, to be honest with you, that a reviewer should not pay for a game simply because the instances of a reviewer being unfairly biased towards a game for getting it for free are less often occurring than the other way around. I feel like that oftentimes if people have to pay for a game, they tend to feel like they have more invested into it emotionally, and I don't feel like emotional judgments are going to be as sound for an actual review. And this is exactly what should be in a review. What you should look for in a review: the features, the target group, the standout feature of it, and the practicalities. And these are unfortunately not always very well covered by a lot of reviews out there. The features are usually pretty well covered. What does it do good? What does it not do good? Who is it for? This is a big thing on there. Is if you're a fan of Warframe, you might like to try Destiny. That you're a fan of that style of game, so it would stand to reason that you would then be the target audience for that product, and that's something that I think that oftentimes gets disregarded. The standout feature: what makes a game unique? Unfortunately, while you may play Warframe and like Warframe, Destiny doesn't really have many standout features to me that really would make it stand out over any other game or any other thing in general. It's kind of like the video game equivalent of celery, sadly. And the practicalities: the value for the money, price guarantee, and any other important details are included in a review. That's pretty much the standard of what a review should contain. Here's another thing on there too, and this goes back to the second Mortiel fallacy I did, where I talked about disclosures. You should also disclose the manner, or the person should disclose that they got the product for free if they did. They should also disclose any affiliation with the target company. The reason why I say that is because towards the end we're going to get into the, in that disclosure part, we're going to get into the EA game changers and stuff like that, which are not reviewers, and that's something to note. Other factors on here is alternatives. Give alternatives, and including negatives and positives. And that's what I was talking about. These are the same thing on there, is that you should say, hey, Warframe, create that association of Warframe and Destiny, because even though they may not like both games, a lot of the crowd is going to be the same. And if they like Warframe, they may like Destiny, and vice versa. And the negatives and positives, you should always have both. Even if you love the game, you should try to stretch to find the most obscure thing the most deep and complex critical aspect that you can possibly do to criticize it. And you can even say, man, it is really tough to find something to be critical about this game, but here's the one thing I can be critical about it. That's something that you often don't see, as well as positives. Those are things that you don't always see in balance. You'll see them either say, God, I love this game, it's so amazing, this game's great, you guys should all buy it, or God, I hate this game, everything about this game is bad, there's nothing good about this game. It's two extremes, and you never see both. Well, you should probably say both just to be sure. Yeah, and then that's one thing on there. Now, the reason for why I'm bringing this up here is that all of this boils down to what companies want to know when you're buying stuff. They want to understand the psychology of the consumer. And that's the last portion that we're going to talk about here. As soon as I take a drink really quick so I can get my proper radio voice going on for this last part. These are the 9 things that oftentimes are, or at least a list of 9 things that oftentimes businesses are looking at whenever they want to know what influences your purchase the decisions. If I can even say the word right? Yeah. Anyway, so the first one is peer reviews matter. Yes, and the reason why this is number 1 is because holy shit, is this the most important part. What people around you say and do influence heavily on your purchasing decisions, right? This is something that you should be cognizant of. Businesses are very much cognizant of it. This is the reason why, when I was talking about the game changers, peer reviews are matter. Businesses would prefer peer reviews to be more important than actual professional, unbiased reviews. The reason why is because they can insert game changers, people like that, embedded marketing into your daily life without you even knowing it, that someone else beside you is actually just regurgitating the company line rather than giving you fair analysis that is actually their own thoughts. This is something that's really, really disappointing to see, that kind of manipulation. But it's something that you need to know about. You need to be cognizant of it. Is whenever you're watching a streamer online and they're touting how amazing a video game is and how much fun it is, and God, they're just loving this game so much. Ask them, be aware that in some cases they may be being compensated in order to say those things. Now, as shocking as it is, you may think that EA is the worst offender of that, but EA actually has a very strict policy on disclosure. Anybody who is speaking on behalf of EA, in that regard, if they're being kind of an influencer or a game changer, they actually have to provide very clear disclosures that their stream and so on is being sponsored by EA. EA has a very strict guideline on it, right? However, they are not the only one out there, and not everybody has such clear practices and disclosures. As disappointing as that is, there are companies out there that would prefer to seek to keep that information obscured from you, so you don't know if you're actually reading a review or hearing review words or hearing solicitation from someone as opposed to just their general enthusiasm for a game. So yeah, I love this part on here. Don't delete negative reviews. They actually help sales if there are only a few of them and they are politely worded. If there's a ton of negative reviews, most people are naturally turned off and look elsewhere. Here's the most important thing about not deleting negative reviews: the Streisand effect. The more you try to cover something up, the more it's going to come back and bite you in the ass. If you continue to delete negative reviews, someone's going to be screen capping that shit on the internet, and they're going to come back and throw it in your face. It's amazing how many businesses have fallen for that trick and seem to not understand that they should not try to curate reviews. But you should be aware that they have tried to do that. They also have tried to put in fake reviews. When you are reading reviews as a consumer, you should kind of try to note the content and how, I guess you could say, realistic the person sounds in the reviews. Like if you just look at the star ratings, you're not going to get an accurate view of the product you're buying. Especially if you look down through the reviews and it says, great game, 5 stars. Why is it great? You have no idea. A lot of times those reviews can be bots, and that's the problem, is that you can get a lot of fake reviews that are just nonsense. Look for someone that actually has a detailed and concise response that actually seems to be fair and balanced, that they're not just saying, oh my god, this is the second coming of Lord Jesus and this is an amazing game and everything about it is amazing, and they're just all talking positive and never mentioning anything negative. especially if they use evasive language in their review, which evasive language is, instead of calling a duck, they're calling a duck a feathered flying animal, right? So if something's like, for example, saying, I did notice hiccups in the frame rate would drop. Instead, they would say something like, it has occasional moments of feeling more cinematic. Translation, the frame rate dips to crap periodically, and that's not a good thing. So that's something to note. People gather their information from mixed sources. Yes, they see it from multiple places, not just your website. People don't often know why they prefer something, and this is what I've been talking about on here. You should really know yourself better, because if you don't know why you like something, that means that someone else can tell you why you like it. And that's really a concern, is that if I just tell you you like Battlefront 2 because it encourages player choice and it really fosters that feeling of pride and accomplishment from opening those loot boxes, can you dispute me? If you don't know why you like or don't like a game, that's a problem. The crowd leads the way. Yes, unfortunately, the crowd is really always something that sadly wins out in a lot of cases. If all your friends are playing a game, chances are high that you may also play the game. As much as I harp on Destiny 2, and I also will harp on PUBG frequently, and other games like that, many of the Pixel Crashers, in fact, right now, are playing PUBG, or they're playing, Destiny 2. A lot of them do that, and that's fine. They enjoyed the game. They have fun with it. I won't buy the game because I don't like Destiny 2. I won't buy PUBG because I don't like PUBG. That's me. That's just me, right? The other thing on there, and this is the last piece on here that we're going to talk about, is simplicity always wins. And this is talking about cognitive fluency, is the human tendency to prefer things that are not only familiar but easy to understand. Remember what the phrase I used before of "it's the way we've always done it"? They understand things. It's just simple, right? Psychologists have determined, for example, that shares in companies with not easy to pronounce names do indeed significantly outperform those with hard to pronounce names. Coincidence? No. People also prefer unlimited data plans because they don't want to have to track minutes. They just want it to be simple and easy. And the main thing is that, and this is something that as a consumer you have to realize, is that companies realize your bias towards simplicity and your bias towards comfort and being in a comfort zone. And sometimes you have to go outside your comfort zone. You can't always just sit on your laurels and let them make the decisions for you. You should be the one making the decision, not them. And that's something that you really need to frame it in a careful manner as, or you need to frame your perspective of it in a careful manner of, in a lot of ways, and it's not necessarily a violent competition, but it is the actual competition is the consumer versus the business. And like I said, there's not necessarily a us versus them in the combative sense. It's a businesses are trying to sell you stuff, consumers are trying to buy stuff. When you see for example, other consumers saying that you should not question the business, that's a problem. They are trying to remain in that comfort zone of just kind of keeping buying from that same place. What you'll see on there is, for example, to give a really easy example of this one, Mass Effect Andromeda. There's a lot of people out there that will say that it is the people that spoke ill of Mass Effect Andromeda, it's their fault that the game failed. while the poor sales are a result of the game being poor, what really is at fault, what caused it, was the game being made in a more poor fashion than the previous games, not living up to the expectation. The result was poor sales, so it's reversing cause and effect there. But what the real motivation behind those people are is comfort. They want to take comfort in knowing that their choices are valid and that company that they're buying from is the correct company, right? They want to feel that comfort and that security. Whenever you start forcing them out of their shell, whenever you tell them that the game wasn't that good, then they start to tend to be resistant to it. And that's one of the things I really think that a lot of people should not just take the easy way, not take the simple way. Do your homework, get out of your comfort zone, and do some research. Even Flooring Matters, that's in stores. Yes, we don't care. Emotional decisions, rational justifications. Here we go, right back to the same thing. Do people make decisions based on emotions or logic? Well, they make it entirely based on emotions, and then they will justify it with logic after they make the purchase. And this actually makes perfect sense, right? And they have a great story on here. This is awesome. I love this. Research participants were shown 2 photos. One was a nice looking plump chicken. The other was a chicken that looked thin and sickly. Participants were told that the plump chicken was natural chicken and the thin chicken was genetically engineered. Researchers informed half of the participants that the natural chickens were healthy but less tasty, and the genetically engineered chickens were tasty but less healthy. The other half were told the opposite. Overwhelmingly, the participants preferred the nice plump chicken, but their reasoning was different. The first group claimed it was because they valued health above taste, and the second group because they preferred taste, or because taste was more important. Neither group seemed to justify their choice based upon how they felt about the chicken's looks. They felt they were compelled to justify their emotional choice with rational reasons. The 2 groups found completely opposite ways to justify the same purchase decision. What that means is, if you have a video game like Mass Effect and people feel emotionally attached to the Mass Effect label, people will buy the game based upon that emotional attachment to the Mass Effect label, and then after the fact find ways to justify why they purchased the game, rather than justifying the purchase before they actually made the purchase. They'll do it after the fact. That is something that you should fight against. You should not make purchases on that. And that's the thing, is it is ingrained in us psychologically to make purchases that way, to just see something we want and grab it. And then after the fact say, oh, well, I needed this. I needed this for these reasons. Yes, Kev, pre-order, kill all the things. Kev, by the way, I just want to note, is not only an avid player of Destiny, he also loves Mass Effect Andromeda. Oh, I'm a mean person. I'm just kidding. Kev is actually fairly fair-minded, but it is what it is. The point is that you should fight against that initial emotional instinct to just purchase stuff with the expectation that you're going to justify it after the fact. That is actually a horrible way to do shopping, but it's the way we all instinctively try to shop, right? Especially when it comes to video games and you have that emotional attachment to what you're buying, right? You love those games, you love those characters, you love the way it makes you feel, right? God damn it, Kev. Now here you go with the port beggar. Who is that? Who is that guy? Is that what the hell is his name? That's the shit. I can't remember which guy that is that calls people port beggars. I want to say it's like Crap Gamer or something like that. that says people are begging for ports. You also have that, like people that get emotionally invested in the platform that they bought, not even the game. It's not even a game. It's that they bought a PS4 and they want to feel validated in what they bought. So they have an emotional instinct to justify their purchase by, I guess you could say, discrediting the opposition. And that's the creation of the fanboy, the infamous fanboy who attacks people who made the purchase decisions they don't agree with, which is baffling and very, very bizarre, but it is a thing that is very common nowadays. If you go online to look for reviews, you'll see someone that say, I didn't like this game very much, and someone's like, well, that guy's just a hater. No, he didn't like it. He's allowed to not like it. And for that matter, others are allowed to like it. Kev is allowed to, JTech. Yeah, I thought, Crap Gamer's an Xbox fanboy, that's right. Fun little anecdote there. I was trying to refer someone to J2Sense, right? The PC builder, who has an awesome YouTube channel, a lot of great information. The guy is brilliant. He even built a couple of custom PCs, I think, for a lot of higher profile people. He's really good at what he does. And I was trying to refer someone to J2Sense, and I accidentally said JTech TV. Like, could not have recommended the wrong channel. Like, those are like complete opposites. Anyway, that's my little anecdote for the day. So the last final piece on here is that it's the subconscious that drives you. I'm a terrible troll. It wasn't intentional. I did not actually intend to refer. It was just J. I heard J, and I built that association in my mind of J2Sense, JTech TV, and I quickly corrected it and said, God damn it, I'm a disgusting person for ever having suggested such a thing. It is what it is. In any case, it is the subconscious that drives purchase decisions. You don't often understand why you're buying something. You create the reasoning for why you buy it after the fact. And it's something that you don't have... you don't have to do that. It's just your initial instinct. And that's really where a lot of places get you. Why do you think when you go to a store, they have all the racks of candy bars and really shit that you don't need is always up at the front near the cash register? It's because you have that instinct of like, oh, I want this. Just reach out and grab it. Oh, I want this. And then afterwards, you'd be like, well, my blood sugar was low today, so I should really have this candy bar. You come up with the reasons after the fact, right? Not while you're actually, doing anything, or while you're buying it. You don't sit there and think, what are the pros and cons of buying this candy bar? You're just like, no, I'm going to buy this candy bar. That's really what the major thing that companies realize is that it's the subconscious that drives your purchase decisions. Where this applies in video games is with the manipulating like marketing strategies that a lot of companies go after. And here's the thing, is that a lot of times you don't realize exactly where you're going with a purchase, but the company might. They might understand your psyche, or at least your motivations, or a demographic of your motivations, as to a way to market to you more effectively. They spend hundreds of billions of dollars, tens of billions of dollars researching the way the brain works in response to advertising. It's not a joke. They know that it is big business. This is the reason why I had that talk about the psychological effects of loot boxes. That's a form of advertising. They know that trained serotonin response in your brain is a way that they can manipulate you to buy more loot boxes. That's influencing your purchasing decisions, right? That's something that is a very difficult trend to buck for a lot of people, but it's it's a habit that you have to build into yourself to stop, think about it, Take a moment, get that distance before you make the purchase, right? Not just instinctively grabbing onto it. In any case, that's kind of been my talk about here. This is going to be a framework for future discussions into like essential consumer advocacy, right? Is the first thing you have to understand is how to be a consumer, right? Being a consumer is as much a responsibility as it is being a privilege. Being able to buy stuff that you want and have what you have available to you and be able to just go out and do what you like is as much a privilege as it is, like I said, it is a responsibility to not just buy whatever the fuck the first thing that's in front of you, because that's the way that the wrong companies get rewarded, and EA becomes a multi-billion-dollar corporation that is able to negatively impact gaming as it is. It's the consumer's fault that EA is where it is, where Ubisoft is where it is, where Activision Blizzard are where they are. It's all the consumer's fault because we buy the games that they put out. I mean, for better or worse, I mean, they may put out good games and we may have liked them, but it is the consumer's fault on there. And that's something that a lot of people have to kind of take into account whenever they're making judgments on purchase decisions. In any case, let's go ahead and let's take a look at who's online right now and see who we're gonna host this evening on here. Obviously, random little tidbit on here for anybody that's new to watching on here. I run this this live stream every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Pacific as a general consumer education show in between my 2 game streams throughout the week. So if you're here for the first time and you're checking this out, or if you see this on VOD on my YouTube channel or on Twitch here, I do this every Wednesday, so come check it out. You might learn something, or you might have something that you want to tell me about, whichever the case. So whatever the case is, you'll find links for all the social media goodness down below. This is the lovely Pixel Crashers channel, where apparently we crash pixels. I honestly still am loose on the justification for the name Pixel Crashers, and I think that I might have been the one that came up with it. I have to justify that after the fact, because that's what I do. Anyway, it looks like Rogue is online. He's playing some PUBG, another game that I'm not a big fan of, but it is what it is. I'm like that, so I don't like any games, apparently. So in any case, guys, we're going to throw a host over to him. So if you guys want to go say hi to him and give him shit for being a scrub at PUBG, he's probably losing. He probably does that a lot, because I'd never actually play games with him, so I can't really say. Anyway, we're going to get signed off here for the night, guys. You guys have a good one. We'll see you here on Friday at night at 7 p.m. for our next stream on there. Guys, come check us out. Have fun. Cheers. Be good to each other and all that good stuff.